Good morning. Dear ones, we have come together this morning to honor and celebrate the life of John Zeitler. A long and rich journey has brought us to this place with John. Always there is so much more to a person's life than can be gathered, written down, or spoken in this or any time. Our best chance is to gather together to remember, because no one person could hold or know all of John's life. He was, even in his apparent simplicity, so vast, so deep, so connected, so beyond knowing completely. But each one here brings a piece, a distinctive experience of John. So coming together and sharing our experiences, our pieces, helps us to more completely, more vividly remember and honor and celebrate John and his life among us. When you came in today, you were invited to take a card and write something about John for which you are grateful on that card. I wish we could hear all that people write. But please consider sharing those things with one another at the lunch downstairs, which is really the most important thing for John. Or if you can't do that, there's baskets at the back of the sanctuary if you would leave them there, and maybe if you don't leave them there and you write something downstairs, there'll be baskets downstairs as well. So John was all about people participating. So that is one way we can do that. May we pray together. Source of all life and our lives, we come to remember with you this day the life of John Zeitler. We thank you for giving him to us, his family and friends, as a companion along our way. We have loved him deeply, and such love causes us to grieve his loss deeply, deeply as well. In your boundless compassion, come alongside us. Give us sureness of spirit and quiet confidence that we may continue, even in the face of death, to affirm and live life. In these moments before us, and then in the days yet to come, grant us courage to grieve, and strength to trust, and grace to continue on. Amen. So a Choctaw friend of mine, Emerson Tootsie, used to say of those that he loved who had died simply, "They've gone on." And surely that is so, in some way or another, still a mystery to us. So John has gone on, and we are left to learn to live in this world without him. And there are no words, really, for how we feel in this time. No words that sum up once and for all that John was in his life and all that he meant to us. But still, there must be some words, some that we will share together this morning. We begin with these words, which John himself heard and valued. So I invite the people that are doing readings to come at this point and be here.
My brother John was a dedicated ponderer of the mysteries of all that is beyond our knowing and understanding, beginning with how it all began. So this reading is from the book of Job about the mysteries of creation. Out of the whirlwind, the questions come. How did it all begin? How did the foundations of the cosmos come into being? How were its dimensions determined? On what does its bedrock rest? And how were its underpinnings laid, even as the morning stars sang together and the galaxies stretched to unfold their light? How were the seas birthed from the flood, wrapped in a blanket of clouds and cradled in fog? And how was their tumult stilled, and how were their boundaries established? And how does the morning come and the dawn arrive to take hold of the corners of the earth? How are they spread over the fields and then led home again? Which is the way to the home of light, and where does darkness dwell? How did the Pleiades gather in their cluster, or Orion align in his belt? How does a great bear in the sky find her direction, or all the constellations their seasons? And how, oh how, have the heavens offered their guidance to the earth? How do we grasp the expanse of the heavens and earth, the cosmos, and our place in it all?
So John heard about a children's book, Dear Acorn, Love Oak, letter poems between friends on NPR one morning. And he was so taken with the idea of that book, I bought it for him. And that's not unusual for me, but for him to have an actual book that is his was not the same as with me. But he loved the focus of that book, and he shared it widely, especially the first exchange between oak and acorn. And he read it at many table gatherings that we were a part of. So Clara and Bo are going to read those two letters for us.
Dear Acorn, I feel you there, a tickle at my twig tips, a plump promise against my rough bark. Your whole life ahead of you, and weeks till you fall. Take a good look around, Acorn, drink in the view. The next stop is Earth, then years upon years, until you see this sky this high again. I'll be waiting, Oak. Dear Oak, I am round and ready, bursting with hope, crammed with possibilities. I know I must drop and sleep and sprout and grow so slow. But then, Oak, I'll stretch up my arms, strong and true. I'll be your friend, the one who rises up beside you. Love, Acorn.
John was a great appreciator of Thomas Berry, a priest, cultural historian, writer, and geologian, what he called himself as a student of earth, history, and evolution. Before his passing, Thomas Berry was asked to offer words for future generations. Among them were these: tell them to seek their own role in the larger evolutionary process. Tell them that humans are always in the process of becoming, always opening to greater life, if they can learn to see it. Tell them the greatest need is to develop a sensitivity to recognize the inner promptings that emerge from the depths of one's own being, where the sacred reality resides. Above all, tell them to practice an intimate presence to the beauty and wonder of the natural world through their intuitive awareness that recognizes the oneness of all life. Tell them to stop and enlarge moments throughout their days to become aware of the mysteries and miracles of creation all around them. The movement of a squirrel, the sound of a bird, the pattern of a leaf, changing patterns of life, of light, the sun, the rain, the stars, dawn and sunset. Tell them we are not ourselves without everything and everyone else.
A reading from Paul's letter to the Colossians about our life together. John embodied this description of how to live our life together. As God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with one another and forgive one another. Above all, clothe yourselves with love. That binds everything together in perfect harmony. Let peace be at home in your hearts and be thankful.
Let us all join in singing "This Is My Song."
This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and wide. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, bright dew and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, thou God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine.
Okay. The astonishing and beloved John Zeitler, 86, passed on May 6, 2026. In early March, John began to dictate an obituary in his own words, and it began this way. Warning, all men past a certain age should be checked for prostate cancer. I was born of Anna Marie Heil Zeitler and George Zeitler in East Brady, Pennsylvania on April 28, 1940. I have 6 siblings, 2 of whom have died, Michael and Robert. Surviving are Mary Ann Zeitler of Erie, Pennsylvania, Dennis Zeitler of Sobickley, Pennsylvania, Joe Zeitler and his wife Sandy of Oil City, Pennsylvania, and Andrew Zeitler and his wife Mary of Washington, Pennsylvania. I am also survived by the love of my life, Carmen Lampy Zeitler. I was a Roman Catholic priest for 26 years. I served as pastor in parishes in Sharon, Pennsylvania, and Des Moines, Iowa, as a Glen Mary home missioner in Butler County, Kentucky, and the program director of the National Catholic Rural Life as a member of the Leon Team Ministry, including parishes in Clark, Decatur, Lucas, Ringgold, and Wayne counties. Those are in southwest Iowa. And as a Mary Knoll foreign missioner in Tanzania. While serving St. Joseph's Parish in Sharon, whose parishioners taught me how to be a pastor, on my weekly day off, I attended the University of Pittsburgh and earned a master's in social work in community organizing. Upon the completion of my commitment to Mary Knoll, I returned to Des Moines, where compassionate and progressive Bishop Maurice Dingman had welcomed me as a young priest. I resigned from the priesthood and began a 10-year career at Broadlawns Medical Center as a social worker with mental health services. On November 24th, 1995, Carmen and I were married in the presence of a loving community of family and friends that has only deepened and widened throughout the over 3 decades we have been together. I am profoundly grateful for all of the goodness that has been shown to me, and I am profoundly sorry for any harm I may have caused. Thus ends the reading of the obituary that was dictated by John, but there is so much more, certainly more than any amount of words can begin to touch. So with some level of apology to John, here are a few more words. Among John's considerable gifts were the gifts of noticing and showing up. In addition to serving him and all whom he worked with throughout his winding and impactful careers, those gifts served so many other places and communities. While at Broadlawns and beyond retirement in 2006, John volunteered with the American Red Cross, providing mental health support in times of disasters, including September 11th in Washington, D.C., Hurricane Katrina in Mississippi, and the U.S. Navy ship Comfort off the coast of Haiti after the 2010 earthquake. Also, while at Broadlawns and beyond, he volunteered for the Polk County Jail, offering classes on smoking cessation, journaling with the Diary of Anne Frank as a guide, and reading and writing of poetry. In retirement, John stepped further into opportunities to be involved in the community and beyond. Shortly after his retirement in 2006, he and a friend traveled to China to teach English to middle school students for 6 weeks. He became a docent at the Des Moines Arts Center. Through various agencies, and sometimes on his own, he counted it a great privilege to come alongside refugee families and communities from all over the world. Having spent 5 years in Tanzania and learning Swahili at age 50, he had an extra measure of compassion and understanding for those trying to make their way in a different country and culture. John became a master conservationist in 2006 and volunteered as a steward at Browns Woods for the next 20 years. He enjoyed offering assistance to travelers at the Des Moines Airport Information Desk for 15 years, sometimes bringing stranded travelers home with him for the respite of a meal or a shower or a bed. He was a part of the Juvenile Justice Committee, advocating for juveniles being held in Iowa prisons and Friends of Iowa Women's Prisoners. John appreciated being involved in the occasional building project with the Habitat for Humanity, sorting books and setting up the annual Planned Parenthood book sale, seasonal transplanting of the Des Moines City Greenhouse, and regular care of sections of the Woodland Cemetery. Just outside his own front door, John was an early steward of the Little Free Library, number 1,192. There are now over 200,000 in the world. Building the first one from recycled materials. A particular gift of John's was using recycled materials. He made sure that there were always books in the library, especially for neighborhood children and students passing by, going back and forth to the neighborhood school. Every April, National Poetry Month, he hung his homemade poetry sign on the Little Free Library as a reminder to passerbys to stop by for books and poetry. Also in the neighborhood, for years, John took on picking up trash up and down the streets, cleaning under the nearby 235 overpass, and cutting down brush along the public fences. John took great delight in hosting, with Carmen, a monthly poetry gathering, including the hospitality of a meal, for nearly 20 years, and particular joy in hosting many international delegations and guests for dinner through the Iowa International Center. He enjoyed doing the New York Times Sunday crossword and all manner of daily word games, reading, biking, walking, hiking, gardening, baking, science, and in his own words, a new challenge, travel to just about anywhere, problem-solving, simplicity. For all the endeavors and connections generated by John's gifts for noticing and showing up, his presence in our lives and our life together was as much a soul presence as anything. His quietly infinite spirit and his capacity for pondering, whether it be the origins of the cosmos or a solution to the most pernicious social justice issues, a challenge facing a friend, or how to make a household repair, or simply the beauty of the river, the trees, the prairie, the birdsong. His draw to silence and calm in the midst of whatever clamor arose, his endless pull toward community, his immensity of soul and humility of spirit that anchored us in all those ways and in ways that we cannot yet give words to. John was a soul presence among us. One of the more tangible evidences of John's way of being among us is the labyrinth at Glendale Cemetery in Des Moines. A labyrinth is an ancient pathway that invites quiet and stillness within, letting go of distractions and moving forward with intention, an awareness of our deep connectedness. And when working with the PATH program at Broadlawns to support those with chronic serious mental health challenges, John thought that building a public labyrinth might be a good effort to bring various people in the larger community together for the betterment of the community. He pondered and invited others into the pondering, and eventually into a process, and then into the reality of creating the labyrinth. The labyrinth remains as a reminder of the soul presence that John was and is in our lives. John Zeitler, a soul presence, surely ever to be more astonished and beloved as time and eternity goes on.
When I was preparing for today's gathering, the words of my then 5-year-old nephew, Kalen, came back to me. We were standing next to my dad's casket in the time set aside for family before his funeral. And Kalen, looking at his grandpa, asked, "Will he still love us?" The answer, of course, was yes, Kalen. He will still love us. Frederick Buechner, in his book, The Sacred Journey, wrote, "Death can put an end to some things, but it cannot put an end to our relationships. The people we love, the people who loved us, gone though they may be. As we move through our lives, we come to understand them in new ways. They come to affect us in new ways. They carry something of us on their way, as most assuredly we carry something of them on ours." I invite us into moments of quiet remembering and giving thanks for John's fine and rich life, all the life it was and will continue. May we pray together for life and love, for deep connection to and love of family, for a stillness linked always to strength, for a bond early and late to the natural world, for perpetual curiosity and openness, for love of the big questions and never settling for easy answers, for intelligence and everlasting learning, for simplicity and humility, for the love of a challenge and the best of humor, for compassion and encouragement, for reliability and stability, for the sheer joy of human encounter, for wisdom, integrity, generosity, for appreciation of all the simple and profound gifts that life offers, for all that was seen and all that went unseen, and how they came together in this one whom we have held dear. We are deeply and eternally grateful, O God. Amen.
Let us all sing, "Hold On to Love."
There is a place for the saints. Hold on to love. There is a season of gladness
Good morning. My name is Tai Duong. Unfortunately, I'm subbing in for my oldest brother, Bin Duong, who was very close. And for those you who know John Zeitler, we know him as Father John, so I might slip and refer to him as Father John. Unfortunately, Bin was supposed to be here, but my father had an emergency surgery, and so being a doctor that he is, Ben had to be in California with him. So I'm going to substitute, and I'm going to read Ben's message. But I think after listening to Father John's self-written obituary and then the extended obituary and knowing the impact that he had on our family, truly he is a very humble man because he had a bigger impact than I think we knew. So this is what my brother wrote. My name is Bin Duong. My wife, Twit Fan, she's out there sitting. We are from Phoenix, Arizona. We have known Mr. Zeitler since 1975 when he was an associate pastor at Holy Trinity Catholic Church and was known to us at the time as the endearing Father John. We, my own family, my wife's family, and probably many others were blessed to meet him and to be under his wings. In his role and through his acts of kindness, generosity, and compassion, he greatly and positively influenced our lives and growth. Even though we moved from Arizona in 1991, we kept in touch with him over the years and visited him as many times as we could whenever we came back to Des Moines. We saw him last in April of this year, just a few weeks before he passed away, even though he was feeling weak and getting tired easily, and he and Carmen warmly welcomed us. We were grateful for his emotional but meaningful visit, so thank you, Carmen. Our story started in September of 1975. We, my family, and later Twit's family, and Ben does not reference here, but there was a third family, the Doe family, came to Des Moines as Vietnamese refugees through the sponsorship of Holy Trinity Catholic Church in the Beaverdale area. We first met Father John at the airport with other welcoming Holy Trinity Church parishioners. Since that time, and for many more years, he became one of our God-sent lifesavers. He made himself available to us whenever and wherever we needed, especially in areas of schooling and transportation. I remember the many occasions that we called on him to pick us up from Dowling High School, even in the cold and rain and snowy condition. Because we missed our bus or due to other reasons or one another, he was always there. He helped us cheerfully and always with warm and a kind smile. For me, Ben, personally, he did more than what his ministry duties as an associate pastor at Holy Trinity called for. He visited and prayed for me before and after my own open-heart surgery in the summer of 1976. A couple years or so later, he helped teach me how to drive a car and took me to the DMV a couple times to get my first driver's license. During one of our trips, I accidentally dented his car in the rear end, and I can still remember clearly. I was scared, shaken, ashamed, but with his understanding look and kind assurance, I got my confidence back and then passed the driving test. In addition, he also gave me advice on life, education. He encouraged me to try my best and do well in school so that I could achieve my dream. I did succeed. On graduation from medical school in the summer of 1987, he congratulated me and told me that he was happy for me and my family and that he was very pleased and proud of me. So the impact that he had on my brother's life, imagine a refugee, later 18, speak no English, was able to go through medical school at University of Iowa. That is the legacy that Father John, it was through his support and love. I will continue, my brother. And yes, I can never forget the Honda motorcycle that he gave me when he completed his service at Holy Trinity Church. There were many memories with this motorcycle, but no time for me to tell it all. Guess who was often riding on the back seat of the motorbike with me? About 8 years after he gave up his motorcycle, Father John came back to Holy Trinity Church to assist in celebrating my marriage with Tui, who used to ride with me. Sometimes I wondered if he intended to be the matchmaker for us by giving us the motorcycle. He probably was. All in all, his advice, encouragement, kindness, generosity, in part contributed to the foundation that supported me and many others and allowed us to learn, to grow, to become successful. We are what we are today thanks to Mr. Zeitler, a.k.a. Father John. Being a humble person, however, he was reluctant to take credit. Instead, he usually smiled and expressed what he was proud of us. He expressed that he was proud of us and what we have accomplished in our lives. I'm sure that many of you here today also have similar stories and experience through the interaction of this amazing man that we know as Mr. John Zeitler or Father John. You may even be benefiting from his work and generosity as we did. Okay. So that was written by my brother. And so I want to speak now representing the three refugee family, the Vietnamese family that came over in 1975. You notice he doesn't talk about that in his obituary, but that's the humble man that he is. And it's so appropriate that on his program, The Quiet Life of Magnitude and Grace. I'm an elder at my current church, and grace is something that I value tremendously, and that's what he had. He showed three families so much grace, and through that he magnified. And so last year, we celebrated, the families gathered in California to celebrate 50th anniversary of us coming over to this great country. And I wish I had the photo to show you because it's just a great visualization of the legacy that Father John left, because there were children, parents, elderly parents, hundreds of them gathered. And that is a legacy of Father John. And I just can't express how appreciative our families are, and we wish to be here. But I think the greatest legacy that Father John left, at least I will speak for myself, is that I am still a follower of Jesus Christ. And he's instilled that, he planted that seed, and like the story of the oak and the acorn, it grew. So thank you. Thank you, Carmen.
I'm Ron Eckhoff. I met John 20 years ago when he took the Master Conservationist program through Polk County Conservation and Iowa State University Extension, and he was supposed to do some volunteer service in the general area of conservation. I'd been through the program 2 years earlier and started working as a park steward in Browns Woods, cutting and treating invasive species. And the partner I'd been working with had been getting busy with other things, so they needed somebody new. And I don't know if John selected Browns Woods or if he was told we really need somebody. But in any case, they brought him to me at Browns Woods, and we started working together. One day a week through spring, summer, and fall, we would spend about an hour, one of us with a very loud steel blade cutter and the other with herbicide to treat the honeysuckle, the buckthorn, whatever invasive species we were trying to deal with. Those were the two really big ones. Since we were using a very loud piece of equipment, we couldn't talk while we were working. So we had a little bit of time to talk as we were getting ready or as we finished. But it was sort of a gradual process to learn about each other, and John certainly didn't brag about the kinds of things he was involved with, but over a period of years, actually, I gradually learned some of the many things that were mentioned in the obituary that he was involved in doing on a volunteer basis. And I was very impressed with all that, but then as I thought about it a bit, I was even more impressed. I mean, those organized volunteer things you sign up for and you do, but John was also involved in a whole lot of what I would call just independent volunteer activity. I know he would buy groceries for people on a regular basis. He would take somebody out to lunch who didn't have a chance to get out of the house. He would take people to doctor's appointments or other appointments, just all kinds of things on an individual basis. In fact, a few years ago, I was going to have a procedure that involves sedation, and I needed a driver, and my daughters were both tied up. So I called John and said, I know you take people to the doctor's appointments. Can you take me? And so he gave up a half a day to take me and either wait around or come back later and get me back home. Then more recently, my wife was involved in going through some rehab in a skilled nursing facility, and John and Carmen were really the faithful visitors that visited her every week, and I'm sure he visited lots of other people in the hospital or nursing homes. I know he was involved in befriending people who were in prison, and just lots of other things that I probably don't know about, and certainly work with refugees both on a very organized basis, but just on an individual basis. Basically, if John saw somebody in need, he wanted to do something to help them. And that kind of extended beyond individuals. I think it applied to Mother Nature as well. If you went on a walk, and we would walk sometimes the trails in Browns Woods, or we went out to Purple Martin Lake, someplace else to walk. If you walked with John, he was picking up trash anywhere he went. So he was very, very interested in Mother Nature. I suspect that from an early age he was interested in nature and in conservation. But I know when he was in Mount Ayr years ago, Tom Rosberg from Drake University Botany was doing research on prairie remnants in southern Iowa. And John and Tom became very good friends, and I think that amplified probably John's interest in nature and in conservation. We spent 15 years cutting and treating invasive species in Browns Woods, and then I'm not sure if it was because we were getting older, some things were changing, they were going to have a group kind of start working on that. We transitioned about 5 years ago to taking care of the prairie plantings in the parking lot at Browns Woods, and we've been doing that through the last 5 years. We're just about to start doing it this spring. In the wintertime, I'm not sure when we started this, but somewhere along the line, in order to fill in between the fall and the spring, we started once a week walking in a mall just to begin. And that allowed us to talk a bit more than we had when we were doing loud things. When I was with John frequently, I would share my current pet peeve, whatever was bothering me. And sometimes John would be very sympathetic to my pet peeve. Other times he would very politely indicate, if that's all you got to worry about, you shouldn't be so worried. One of the things that struck me when we would finish working and leave, or finish walking and leave, John's parting comment would be, "It was good to be with you." Now, most of us say things like, "Have a nice day," "Isn't the weather great," or something, but "it's good to be with you" seemed like a much more personal thing, kind of made you feel good. And recently, I told John that even though Polk County Conservation has done lots of good things over the years, I thought one of the top 10 things they did was putting John and me together. From a selfish standpoint, I certainly miss John. But more important, I think the whole community, all the people here, miss John. He did so much for so many for so long. So I would say it was very good to be with you, John.
I'm Mary Ann. I'm John's sister. So what was it like growing up with John and growing old with John as your big brother? I was born when John was 6 years old. Our oldest brother, Mike, was 9. After me came 3 more brothers, Dennis, Joe, and then Andrew. We grew up in a small, very insular town of East Brady in western Pennsylvania. So our lives involved and revolved entirely around family, home, church, and then school. When John was 14, and the 4 of us were all under 9 years old, John left for the seminary. It was about 20 miles away out in the country. Their rules permitted us to take a meal and visit with him for 3 hours on the 3rd Sunday of each month. He was home only for Christmas and for part of the summer. But as many of you know, John didn't have to be around all the time to make an impact on your life. Though he lived in the seminary for 9 months of the year for 12 years, where he had little or to no interaction with the outside world. No phone, no television, no radio, no travel. Yet, surprisingly, it was John who opened the world up to the 4 of us at home, a world of varied and very interesting ideas and places and people. My earliest memory of him doing this was his first summer home from the seminary. There are 2 Jehovah's Witnesses going door to door. And as they approach our house, John invites them to come up, sit on the porch with him. Now, 9-year-old me runs to the kitchen and says, "Mom, John's talking to the Jehovah's Witnesses." My mom says, "Why don't you see if they want some lemonade?" So they were there quite a while, and when they left, I said to John, "Why did you talk to them?" And John said, "You don't only want to talk to people who think like you do." I took that comment as an insult and said, "What's wrong with the way I think?" And thus began John's lifelong effort to open our minds and help us understand a world of diverse and complex ways of thinking. When John was 16, he was driving. That summer, he took me to the first movie I ever saw, to the first stage play I ever saw at a community theater. When he was 17, he and his friend Paul rode their bikes from East Brady to Montreal, Canada. That's over 500 miles. There were the 4 of us who had never been more than 25 miles away from home, didn't know anyone who had ever gone on a vacation, and we're watching our big brother take off on an adventure. The possibility of sometime traveling to new places opened up. There was the Christmas when the gift from John for each of us was a lovely card that read, "John Zeitler has donated in your name a goat to a needy family in Peru." Now, we're kids. We think that's a pretty amusing Christmas gift. But John was introducing us to the needs of people in other parts of the world. You can imagine the importance of family to John. It would be difficult to think of a commemoration or a reunion when John wasn't there celebrating with us, or a time of crisis when John wasn't there with his support. With his brothers and his dad, he enjoyed hunting, and their bounty was the main course for many a meal at our house. When John moved to Iowa, there were their much enjoyed pheasant hunting trips to Mount Ayr. For most of the last 47 years, John and I, along with several family members usually, spent a week together somewhere. What an abundance of stories and rich memories we have from those times together exploring places. There's too many to share now. So let me sum it up by saying, any week spent with John anywhere is a good week. How he enjoyed bringing people together, especially around the table. When we took dinner out to the seminary when he was 14 years old, he always invited other seminarians who did not have family visiting, come join our table. When I started the preschool, it was 1980, John said to me, "You know, you should have a potluck and bring those families together so they get to know each other." That idea of his became the September New Family Tureen Dinner, which was an annual event for many years. Just 9 years ago, when I moved from another city to a new neighborhood, John called. He said, "Your housewarming gift for me is I'm going to send you a box of homemade cookies every month for a year. And when you get them, I want you to invite your new neighbors and your friends in for coffee and cookies." He did that every month for a year, and I did share. When you talk with John on the phone, he'd usually ask, "What are you reading?" And we'd talk about that. And at some point, he would say, "It's so good to hear your voice." I believe John can hear my voice now, so I'm going to close with the Hawaiian ritual, sometimes used at the end of life, by saying, "I love you, I thank you, I forgive you, and please forgive me." First, John, I love you for always, always looking out for me, for encouraging me to read, to gather people together, to meet and interact with new people, and to take every opportunity you can to travel. John, I thank you. I thank you for Carmen. You leave me with a most amazing, kind, thoughtful, generous, sensitive, best friend. There is no way I can ever thank you enough for bringing Carmen into my life and into our family. John, I forgive you. I forgive you for that one time in our whole life together that you said no to an idea I had. We're sitting on a park bench on a towering cliff in Peru, and we're watching as people line up to do tandem paragliding off the cliff and soar out over the Pacific Ocean. I begged you to do that with me, and you said, "Absolutely no way are we ever doing that." I look back on it now and I realize we were in our 60s, so that was probably a really good idea. And finally, John, please forgive me. Forgive me for not following your example, your commitment to living life simply, devoid of consumerism, never buying something new unless you couldn't fix the old or find something used. I teased you a lot about living life that way, and I am so sorry, because I'm now at the downsizing phase of life, and I realize how very right you were. I did not need all that stuff. I am regretful. And with that, I thank you, and I look forward to hearing your stories about John when we gather downstairs for lunch. Thank you.
Thank you for all those pieces and experiences. When I texted Marianne while I was in the process of writing John's obituary, that it was getting kind of long, she said she laughed. She remembered that John always said that I started every story at creation. And that is true. Often. So I'm not quite starting at creation, but here's a story from John's childhood. Sometime in the last few months, John told me this story. He couldn't remember exactly how old he was, maybe 9, 10. On a summer day, maybe not unlike this summer day, he was in the woods between the street that his family lived on in East Brady, as Marianne said, and the river, which was the Allegheny River. East Brady is located on the Allegheny. He had a bank bag with him because he was a legendary carrier for the Pennsylvania-based, widely circulated newspaper, The Grit. On the day, usually the bank bag was used to collect the money from the people who subscribed to The Grit. But on the day of the story, the bank bag had another use. It was kind of a knapsack. And in the knapsack was a compass, his penknife, and some matches. All that a boy might need for any possible adventures the woods of Pennsylvania might offer. But what he remembered in the story that he told was sitting quietly on the ground underneath a very large mountain laurel. And as he sat quietly alone, taking things in around him, looking at his surroundings, he found, his precise word, a solitary jack in the pulpit, a most impressive, showy wildflower. It was an experience, a memory he carried with him until the waning days of his life. Who knows why exactly? When I asked him, he said he didn't know why that memory had come to him, but was very vivid and real. If I had to venture a guess, it might be that experience, that story of a childhood memory, touched the essence of who John Zeitler was and the kind of life he chose to create. His gift for stillness, his innate capacity for noticing, his ever-present curiosity, his natural posture of pondering, even his orientation to his own true north that he needed no compass to find. It seems to me all of that is present in that story from childhood and more. There was a groundedness in John that was as clearly evident in that boy on the riverbank in Pennsylvania as it was, I would say, to most every encounter we had with him throughout his long life. Marianne's great stories of John were something of a witness, a testament to that groundedness. Such groundedness allowed him to step over and over again throughout his life into many challenges and adventures. It invited connections that felt like they went deep quickly, perhaps beyond one's personal experience of John. Parishioners, clients, colleagues, children, strangers at the airport, so many from other countries meeting him for the first time, trusted him, connected with him. Such groundedness anchored him for pondering some of the great mysteries of the world. Among them, the beginnings, the vastness, the expansiveness of the cosmos, the origins and meaning, not to mention the genius of the mounds and earthworks of ancient cultures that he loved to walk around, consider, sit beside. The still unknowns of the workings of the human body, just to name a few. The last book that John read late last year was titled Into the Unknown, The Quest to Understand the Mysteries of the Cosmos. Its focus on all that is yet unknown to us in that realm. John's groundedness enabled him to head endlessly into considering so much that we cannot know. And equally, his groundedness moved him to give body and soul to what we can know and do know, the power of love and justice in our lives and in our life together. And then there was a pace to John's life, a slower, more deliberate pace than many of us experience, and that certainly the culture does not encourage. It's a pace we hear in that childhood memory. Sitting under a mountain laurel long enough to notice a wildflower, what young boy does that? Mary Ann mentioned in a recent conversation that John was never in a hurry. That brought to mind the first time I met John on the 4th of July in Diagonal, Iowa. The Ringgold County Ministerial Association was gathering to be in a parade that was part of Diagonal's centennial celebration. And the pastor giving the instructions seemed a little frantic about getting all the clergy up the hill on time to where the parade was assembling. As I recall, in the midst of her detailed instructions, I saw John just wander off. And I remember vividly thinking to myself, I think I need to know that person. When the rest of the clergy got to the designated starting point, John was there, ready to parade, talking with someone, having gotten there at his own pace. In the years since I got to know that person, we have walked together along many a path, through many a woods, county, state, national parks. Sometimes along the path, always, and sometimes more than once, he would just stop. Maybe his eyes were drawn to something particular, but mostly I think he felt like he just slowed to be in that particular place at that particular time. Look around and notice what he noticed. And no one I have ever known loved a bench more than John Zeitler. A sort of material, tangible invitation along so many ways to slow down, sit down, be. A favorite story about a bench that John liked to tell happened on the bench he made as a companion to the Little Free Library. The bench sits just across the sidewalk from the library, next to a tree, so the tree can kind of be the back to the bench. One afternoon, he was sitting on that bench, having returned from picking up trash in the neighborhood. He was wearing old clothes, which wasn't all that odd. He had on frayed and faded jeans, a heavy flannel-lined denim shirt that had seen better days probably decades before, a well-worn cap on his head. Beside him was the trash bag filled with his neighborhood haul. Calumet Middle School up the street had let out for the day, and students were walking home. Across the street, a middle school girl saw John sitting on the bench, crossed the street, stopped at the bench, and with a very kind voice, graced with a bit of an African accent, asked John, "Are you hungry?" John's response was, "What do you have?" He told her she told them, "I don't have any food with me, but my house is nearby. I could go get some and bring it to you." He realized, of course, that she thought he was living without a home. So he thanked her and told her that he lived in this house and that he had food. He wasn't at all sure that she believed him, but she went on her way. One never knows what encounters slowing down the pace might offer, or what treasure such a pace might offer, like a memory that endures through a lifetime of a summer day. And how right for John's enduring story to have happened on a summer day. The season full to the brim with light. In all the years that I knew John, he had a bone-deep orientation to the light. It seemed like just days after the winter solstice, he would mention that he noticed the days were getting longer. And he would monitor and mention the return of the light not infrequently. He seemed to be drawn to the light, and he introduced me to the 16th century artist Michelangelo Caravaggio, who brought to art a new and astounding use of light. We were privileged to seek out Caravaggio's masterpieces of light in museums from Kansas City to Paris, from Cleveland to Florence, looking for the light that John so loved. He was drawn also to the everyday light coming through the trees on our street, light dancing through the over 100-year-old windows in our house, light warming and lighting the screened-in, glassed-in porch that he enjoyed in every season. The gift of light seemed to be drawn to him as well. And why wouldn't it? Isn't light drawn to light? And who among us has not experienced John's capacity to be and bring the light, to see the light in us and in so many? Perhaps that is in some measure why we've come together today, to experience again the light that endures and guides and holds. There are so many ways we could have talked about John's life today, and as you can imagine, I have explored many of them. But it does somehow seem right to have begun with a story from John's early life that he carried with him, told, valued in some unnameable way. So many qualities of his life we could have lifted up, but maybe those we see in the boy sitting under the mountain laurel, his groundedness, his pace given to attention, his draw to the light, were foundational for all the ways that John's life played out. Many of them we have heard in his obituary, in the stories told today, in the experiences that each of us gathered here have had, and truly countless others. So much that John has left us. As we talked oh so sparingly, about this day and what might be included. John remembered something of a quote from Sister Joan Chittister: "Every death requires that someone else live differently." The complete quote is printed on the bookmark that I hope you picked up as you came in this morning. We had both experienced that, learning from those who had gone on how to live more fully, more intentionally, more purposefully by their example. John even kept a Rolodex next to his chair with the names of those who have gone on that he wanted to remember and be reminded of their lives. He would turn it to a new name every day or so. The last time he turned it, some of you will appreciate this, it was Mary Dingman. So much that John has left us to remember, to carry on in some fashion. I came upon this wisdom a while back. Our grief for the passing of those we love will not get smaller, but because of their presence in our lives will get bigger. So I've spent some time on the labyrinth in the last couple of months. And facing east from the center of the labyrinth at Glendale Cemetery, there is a tree that I had never noticed until just a couple of weeks ago. It's a tall and graceful maple tree. Clearly something, a storm most likely, has taken a third of the tree. The remaining tree continues to flourish, green and strong, and reaching for the sky, offering shade and shelter, beauty and reciprocity, somehow. The death of this one whom we have loved is perhaps something like that tree. There is a part of our hearts that will always be devastated by his death. But maybe there is the possibility of continuing to grow around that traumatic wound, finding ways to offer shelter and shade, beauty and reciprocity to one another. Within the tree, within our shared lives, there are resources, unseen but enduring. Surely. Certainly, John's life has offered us resources to continue to grow, even thrive in our lives and our life together. As a lifelong appreciator of poetry, Marianne talked about him, not to you, but mentioned to me, him memorizing long poems and reciting them for them. So he would be familiar with the questions posed by poems. The classic sonnets, certainly. Elizabeth Barrett Browning's opening line from Sonnet 43, "How do I love thee?" Shakespeare's opening line in Sonnet 18, "Shall I compare thee to a summer day?" And the poetic question embedded in Hamlet's speech, which John asked me to read to him one evening in late March, "To be or not to be, that is the question." But the poetic question that came to me as I was looking for a way to draw this time to a close is perhaps the best known in this generation of poetry appreciators. It is the last line from Mary Oliver's poem, "The Summer Day." The poet asks, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" we may be so bold as to offer an answer for John, an answer perhaps embedded in that boy under that mountain laurel. Live a life of quiet magnitude and grace, depth and dimension, love. And so he did. So, we have been witnesses to an extraordinary life. As a sign of the circle of witness that we have created today, I invite you to join hands with someone near. If there are gaps, they will be filled by the spirits of those who are absent from us in body, but forever with us in love. So will you do that? We are honored to have been witnesses to the extraordinary life of John Zeitler. We have been grounded in his groundedness. We have been slowed by his pace and pondering. We have been drawn to the light he was drawn to, the light he was and offered. We have seen tenderness and kindness unbidden, but always at the ready. We have seen heart and hands offered more generously than we could take in. We have joined in the play, the laughter, the joy of living. We have been fiercely and deeply loved. All that we have witnessed in John's extraordinary life, may we determine in some measure to offer in our own lives, especially the quietly varied and immense expressions of love. In this moment, and in all moments, we are a witness to that which has the last word, always, love. Now please receive a blessing on. Holy Mystery, source and lover of life, in the light of this summer morning, in the fragrance and beauty of flowers, in the magic and mystery of music offered, in the gathering of family and friends, in memories shared, we have acknowledged anew that life is a gift, that each life is of immeasurable value, that the life within us, among us, and around us is in some way eternal. We thank you again for the life of John Zeitler. We cannot seem to say it enough. We thank you for life shared and for the eternal nature of our bonds. We thank you that we are not alone, that we are connected always to the love that has borne us this far, the love that will carry us on, the love at the heart of all creation. As we leave this place, we trust that love remains. It has been said that it is the nature of love to flow, like a river, flowing from its source, along its winding way, to the place where all things merge and begin again, that we may not yet be able to see. Nevertheless, we trust. Love remains. The river flows. Amen. I invite you to stand in spirit or in body to sing together, We Are Stepping In. And as the musicians come, I just want to say how grateful we are to your gift of music today and leading so beautifully and well. So.
We invite you to sing the chorus. The verses will be sung by soloists. So let us begin and end.
There is a prayer like a wide river, it never ends, does not begin. Around the world, it's always flowing, and I am stepping in. We are stepping in, and we are praying
with those in different places, different languages and faces, every hour of the day. We are praying with enemies and strangers, in gratitude and danger, calling God 10,000 names.
There is a prayer like a wide river, it never ends, does not begin. Around the world, it's always flowing, and I am stepping in. We are stepping in, and we are praying with those who've gone before us, that great ancestral chorus. We are joining as we sing, and we are praying with heroines and heroes, Moses, Mary, and Romero, yes, and Martin Luther King. There is a prayer like a wide river, it never ends, does not begin. Around the world, it's always flowing, and I am stepping in. We are 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 stepping in.
So we are invited to continue honoring and celebrating John's life where he most wanted us to be, around a table, enjoying a meal, sharing stories and connections. Downstairs, you will also find, if you need extra incentive, a cookie table, which is a Western Pennsylvania tradition of enjoying, as in eating them now, and sharing, as in taking some home, cookies. So the gathering and the celebration continues. The service is ended. Go in peace. Persist in justice. Abide in love. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
You want to play what we
Yeah, we sing well. We sing well together. Yeah. Yeah. That was good.
While they're going out.